The sound of the cup shattering against the cafe floor turned every head, but she didn't flinch. It slipped from her fingers like everything else had slipped from her life these past few months, quietly at first, then all at once, leaving a mess no one else wanted to touch. Coffee spread across the wooden floor like a dark stain that wouldn't fade, and still, she just sat there, staring at nothing, as if the world had already ended and no one had told the rest of the room yet. If you believe every story hides a lesson, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Stories, because sometimes, the smallest moments carry the deepest truths. The cafe was warm, glowing with soft yellow lights and decorated with faint traces of celebration, strings of lights, a hint of green garland, the quiet hum of people pretending to be okay. Outside, the evening had already settled in, cold and distant, pressing its face against the glass windows. Inside, life went on. Cups clinked, chairs scraped, conversations overlapped, but around her, there was a silence so heavy it felt like it was swallowing the air. She sat alone at a corner table, her coat still on, her hands cold despite the heat. A pair of headphones rested around her neck, unused, like she had planned to escape into sound but couldn't find the strength to press play. Her eyes were fixed somewhere far away, not on anything in the room, not on anyone, just lost. It had been 3 days since everything fell apart. 3 days since the call. 3 days since the words that didn't feel real even as they echoed endlessly in her mind. 3 days since she realized that some absences are permanent. She hadn't cried in public. Not yet. There was a kind of dignity she was clinging to, fragile and pointless, but it was all she had left. People noticed her, briefly. A glance here, a whisper there. But strangers have a way of looking past pain when it isn't theirs. Everyone, except one. The little girl had been watching her for a while. She stood a few steps away now, small hands clasped together, her bright pink jacket almost glowing against the muted tones of the cafe. Her curly hair was tied into 2 soft puffs, slightly uneven, as if someone had done it in a hurry. There was something steady about her gaze, something unafraid. The woman didn't notice her at first. Not until a small voice, soft but certain, broke through the silence she had built around herself. "Do you need a friend?" The question didn't feel real. It didn't belong in that moment. It didn't belong to someone so small, so untouched by the kind of weight sitting in the woman's chest. For a second, she thought she imagined it, another fragment of a mind trying to cope. But when she looked up, the girl was still there, waiting. There was no pity in her eyes. No hesitation, just something simple and honest, something the world often forgets. And something inside the woman shifted. At first, it was resistance. A quiet, almost defensive instinct. She wasn't someone who needed saving. Not by a stranger, not by a child, especially not like this. But then came something else. A crack, not loud, not dramatic, just enough to let something through. The woman studied her, the way the girl stood without fear, the way she didn't seem to care about the awkwardness of approaching someone she didn't know. The way she asked that question as if it were the most natural thing in the world. And suddenly, the cafe didn't feel so loud anymore. It didn't feel so distant. For the first time in days, the woman became aware of where she was, not trapped in memories, not drowning in silence, but here, in a moment she hadn't expected. She didn't answer right away. Because the truth was too complicated. Yes, she needed a friend. Yes, she needed something, anything, to hold onto. But how do you explain that kind of emptiness to someone who still sees the world as something gentle? The girl didn't rush her. She simply took a small step closer, as if closing the distance would make the answer easier. And that's when it happened. The woman's expression changed. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't sudden. But her eyes, once distant and hollow, softened, just slightly. The tension in her shoulders eased, almost imperceptibly. And in that moment, something returned to her that she didn't realize she had lost. Presence. She wasn't somewhere else anymore. She was here, looking at someone who saw her, not as broken, not as invisible, but simply as someone worth asking. The kind of question adults forget how to ask. The kind of kindness that doesn't try to fix anything, just to be there. And somehow, that made it harder to hold everything in. Her lips parted, as if she might speak, but no words came. Instead, her eyes filled with something she had been holding back for too long. Not a breakdown, not yet, just the beginning of one. Because sometimes, it's not the big moments that break you. It's the small ones that finally make you feel. Take a second right now, before we reach the end, and tell me in the comments, have you ever had a moment where a stranger changed your day without even realizing it? The girl didn't seem to mind the silence. She simply pulled out the empty chair and climbed onto it, sitting across from the woman like she had always belonged there. No permission, no hesitation, just quiet company, and for the first time in days, the woman didn't feel alone. Nothing was fixed, nothing was solved, the pain was still there, deep and unrelenting. But something had shifted, a reminder, maybe, that even in the middle of loss, the world doesn't completely turn away. Sometimes, it leans in, softly, unexpectedly, through the smallest hands and the simplest words. And sometimes, that's enough to change everything. If this story made you feel something, anything at all, take a moment to like, share, and comment. Because the smallest stories often carry the deepest emotions, and someone out there might need this reminder today.